Hello, I'm Pienaar and I would like to talk about art and the marketing of art. I just want to make a few things clear before I address a few issues through my journey with Jeddah. Let me first of all get rid of all the important I's. If I don't give you these facts about myself, you may wonder about the message I hope to deliver. Number one, I'm not a full-time artist, and I may never be one. I have been in art education for almost 22 years now. I'm an educator, number two, and I completed my postgraduate studies which focused on utilizing aspects of the arts therapies for self-insight. Number three, you may find that I may be posing questions and that I am not offering business solutions. That is indeed true. There are many things I do not understand when it comes to marketing art. Number four, I've been actively creating art and I've been trying to sell my goods as a sideline hobby for almost 26 years now. And unfortunately, I cannot tell you that it was a financial success. However, I think I have learned a few tricks which may spare you a few expensive errors, and perhaps I will offer you a few shortcuts as well. Number five, I will use my journey with Jeddah as an example of how I tried to utilize the current digital printing possibilities we all have access to. Before I tell you more about what I have learned through the last 8 years, I just want to tell you that we would have had a group exhibition here in Jeddah on the 19th of March 2020, but because of the coronavirus it was cancelled. Therefore, I have a number of excellent products here which an artist does not normally have at his or her disposal. These products would have decorated my Jeddah by Pienaar store. I will now disappear, and then I will record a voice track, and over that I will display photos to make what I want to say more understandable in a rather spontaneous way. I should add, I think, it will be a collage of impressions and arty events. I trust you will enjoy it. At the end of the voiceover, I will reappear to bring this discussion to a close. Please bear in mind that this discussion is not a marketing ploy of mine, because Journey with Jeddah as a souvenir venture is no more. See you later. The foundation on which this discussion rests is I applied myself and I created a body of artworks over a 4-year period. It does not have to be a 4-year period, obviously. You can make it in a day if you like, but you need an original image or images that you can reproduce. That is the point. I have always wanted to see my artworks on textiles and other items. Please bear in mind that I did not clean out my bank account to create these products I will show you, and even though they may appear very professional and marketable, I hope, I often merely made a once-off sample to determine the feasibility of an item. Nobody knows when you only have one item. The sun always shines on TV. However, if you want to be impressed, because that is the beauty that digital printing affords us all today. I started my sublimation printing journey by printing my Jeddah images on mugs and magnets, and this I could do in Jeddah. Sublimation printing simply means that the image is transferred to an item using heat. This is usually done on many promotional items. It is quite affordable, but just remember that you cannot charge too much for a sublimated mug. The point you as the artist should keep in mind when you do print mugs or smaller inexpensive items is that you will not necessarily make a lot of money because the profit margin is small. But the beauty of printing on mugs and fridge magnets is that your work is shared. It can be seen and it makes a lovely gift. My Jeddah mugs have gone all over the world. Another inexpensive way to spread the visibility of your work is by printing on paper. There are people who do it at home using the correct paper and ink quality. I personally don't like printing at home because the ink is always running out. I would rather pay the right people to finish that job for me. I printed these in South Africa with a company in Pretoria called Wet Ink. They have always given me lovely prints. Now we move to Hong Kong. I did not fly there. I was communicating with a supplier, Tony Wong. I met him somehow, somewhere online, and I was going to print my very own first drops of fabric with my Jeddah watercolor images on them. He was going to send me 4 3-meter lengths on 4 different types of fabric. What is amazing about this Hong Kong story, at least to me, was that we sorted out all the design problems. I'm referring to the lines and the spaces between the actual artworks which I provided on the smartphone. These pieces arrived and I was over the moon. I could not continue with the Hong Kong supplier because it would have been too expensive for my hobby. I had making scarves in mind. I had to find a more affordable solution. I did some research on India Mart and I found a few suppliers in India who could print scarves and t-shirts for me. It took quite a while to find the right people. You send about 50 messages to about 50 suppliers and only 3 will answer you, it seems. I went to visit them in Amritsar and New Delhi in 2015 and I fell in love with the possibilities I could see for my product range as I looked at the Indian textile industry. It is simply amazing what they can do for you. However, I wish I had learned the trick of asking for a sample first before I started all of this. Please remember this. Always ask for a sample first, even if you pay for the sample. I chose cotton, silk and modal, and silk and wool as my base fabrics. It is really exciting once you get into fabrics, at least for me. You may enjoy seeing your art on biscuit tins or on playing cards or on lampshades, and the list goes on, as you know. I was overcharged for the scarves in the beginning, I think, due to my lack of business experience. But after they had seen me in person, that was rectified. So here is a very important aspect of business, according to me. Go and meet the suppliers, if at all possible. Suppliers have big dreams too, and they assume you are a famous, rich businessman or woman and not a school art teacher, as in my case. Seeing my artworks on the scarves filled me with great happiness, and they were well received. Looking back now, I think I have slightly overspent by printing too many in my excited state. Another aspect I want to touch on here is how do you display your work? Unfortunately for us in the hobby category, it is not always possible to fly higher than what our tiny wings can carry us. A small compound curio store in Jeddah, who was not into profit, was selling the artworks of local artists, and they wanted to include my scarves and items. These items were bought by the expats living there as gifts for friends and family back home. I was very grateful, and they did a good job of selling my work over a 3-year period. However, the shop could not really show my items or any of their stock that well, simply because it was not a boutique style store and it was a small space. In my mind's eye, I could see these beautiful scarves in an airport shop or in a lovely boutique style store. And I still want to believe it's possible, but it is not so important anymore. This brings me to the present day issue of online selling, which is a wonderful way of getting things into the hands of people. But for us as creatives, we still dream of a little visible real life shop or a smart display cart in a shopping center where people can touch and feel the items. However, as part-time art makers, we normally cannot pay the rental fees in the big malls, and when our little venture is still in its infancy stage, that is simply not possible. On this boutique point impossibility, I want you to fly with me to India in your mind's eye. It is September 2015 and I'm sitting at a table with one of my suppliers, Mr. Virender, in New Delhi. We enjoyed a lunch. We spoke about business ideas and then he told me, referring to my scarves, that he believed that it would cost me about 50,000 US dollars to set up a little shop in Dubai to market the scarves properly. He saw potential in these scarves, but he wanted me to realize that to make it big would require big investment. I obviously enjoyed the idea of my own boutique shop somewhere in the Middle East, but it obviously did not happen. But Mr. Virender left a feather in my cap. It felt good. Someone thinks I can open a shop. Let us fly back to Jeddah. We are now sitting in the lounge of my school villa, and I'm sitting with a local friend who is simply crazy about my depictions of the old city, and he is a businessman. He makes me an offer, which goes something like this. We draw up a contract, then he takes all the Jeddah designs off my hands. His company reproduces them onto shower curtains, carpets and other household items, but I myself as the artist would forfeit the right to the designs myself forever. I did not sign the agreement because I could not imagine not being able to use my own work. I will stop this story here, but the point I wanted to get across is there are ways to get your imagery out there in a big way, it seems, but it may not be on your terms. Now back to the mugs. I just want you to realize that when you print on mugs, it is no big deal, but when your product becomes smarter, as you have seen with my Jeddah scarves, hopefully, your possibilities could become smarter too, and you would need wisdom. So surround yourself with good friends and do not overspend unless you have the means. I decided just to enjoy the scarves as they were because I could not see myself as a shop owner at that point, and finding 50,000 US dollars was a challenge. The reality of art and curio items, according to me, is that they fall into the nice to have category and I am sometimes a little worried about the feasibility of relying on luxuries, even though I love having them manufactured. Just keep in mind, most curio stores buy in bulk from the Asian factories, and to compete with them is not easy, and your products will obviously be more expensive because as a single artist or buyer, you cannot afford to have 5,000 items of a single design printed, for example. The chain stores can get their products cheaply or cheaper because they order large quantities. From scarves to aprons, tea towels and ties. I accepted an art teaching position in China, and obviously I wanted to continue my little hobby, and China has ample factories to satisfy my demands, I thought. However, the opposite was true in my case, and it took me quite a while to connect with the right factory. It seemed to me that it was easier dealing with the Indian textile industry, but in the end I found two suppliers that served me well. I printed Jeddah aprons and tea towels and shipped them to Jeddah. Later I found a company that specialized in promotional items, and they printed Jeddah on a few sample ties for me. The aprons and tea towels did fairly well, but the ties did not really live up to my expectations. This is something we need to say to each other. At times, what we think will work will not, and what we think is too mundane to mention actually proves to be the goose that lays the golden egg. I returned to Jeddah because my employment situation in China was a bit tricky. China was fine, but I chose to work for bad institutions, unfortunately. I decided to return to Jeddah and to close this little venture, which I left here in the hands of the curio store, and I wanted to publish my Journey with Jeddah book. The self-publishing industry, it seems, is now what has come to the fore for me. I think an artist could effectively use this avenue to raise an awareness for his or her work. Self-publishing is making things very easy for anyone to publish, and as artists who have the pictures, why not use this opportunity to enlarge the visibility of your work? You create your book, people order from the publisher as they need. Even if your book does not sell so well, you are out there and you can always give someone a copy of your book, showing your toil in oil as a birthday gift. We are sometimes overcome by the reality that we may never make it big time. But who said we cannot excel in the small time? I think publishing could be a wonderful way if you like writing and you want to be taught. When it comes to publishing, you will have to humble yourself and allow editors and layout artists into your project to advise you, and you will obviously have to pay them for their services. However, speaking from experience, it is extremely rewarding and you can get hooked on it. When I was in China, I started the Journey with Jeddah book, but the Chinese person with whom I worked did not understand me well, and I thought he was the problem, and I lost some money because I did not understand the steps of publishing a coffee table photo book. I managed to publish my first non-fiction novel before the Jeddah coffee table book, but I had much to learn, it seemed, when it comes to picture books. Now this is my advice to you if you want to have a book published about your work. The first thing you must do is to categorize your work according to your media and theme. Once you have the categories of your work, write the text. Once you have the text and you know which pictures go where, then you contact the publisher. They arrange the language editor and the layout artist. If you are a graphic designer yourself, obviously you will save yourself some money. I started writing the text of the Jeddah coffee table book, and then I realized I needed my friends so that we could show off the scarves properly in the old city which is depicted on the scarves. These photos I wanted to use in the last chapter of my book. I had to get help from a few people, and we arranged a happy photo session morning in the old city. I asked all my friends with smart cameras to bring their equipment, and we embarked on a sharing and caring effort. As you know, cell phone cameras are just as good these days. These modeling photos talk about my community in Jeddah. I think Seth Godin talks about finding your tribe. I think it is impossible to survive in the arts community if you think you are an important island. As artists or creatives, we need friends and people who enjoy us. We enjoy them, and then our artwork can find a safe place to be shared when the need arises. What my friends did for me is they made the scarves come alive. I do not have a boutique, as you know, so I did not have a collection of modeling photos, but my friends provided that graciously. This is another aspect we as artists have to keep in mind. You have to stage or display your work as best you can with the means you have, and most probably your friends are the ones who will come to your rescue willingly, and they will supply what you lack. And next time, you do them a similar favor. Before I jump back into the frame, I just want to alert you to another possibility which could serve us all very well, namely a photo book. This requires much less effort, but it makes a great gift. I decided to create a photo book of that morning to celebrate our achievement. If you have had a great occasion or an arty celebration, why not compile an easy photo book? Doing a proper book is time consuming, but a photo book is easy. You can compile it and email it to a photo book printer, and they can send it back to you. I almost forgot. It started to dawn on me that if I wanted to survive as a creative in the digital future that is awaiting us, I will have to get to know a few graphic design software tricks. My cousin's husband, who is an IT specialist, alerted me to the free graphic design program called Inkscape. You simply download the latest version, and then with the help of YouTube tutorials, you can learn what you want to learn. So, with the help of Inkscape, I was able to design patterns. Patterns based on my own work, which could be printed on fabric, for example. In India, I found a lovely company that prints the exact length of fabric using the design you supply for the item you want to make. So I think now is the time for me to jump back into the frame. I know there are other companies like Shopify, Etsy, and Spoonflower that can offer similar services. Hello, I'm back with the very large cover of my Jeddah book. This would have been part of the decor, as I suggested earlier. So I decided to use it today as part of my talk, my video presentation. Okay, do you see this picture here? This old man walking into the city. Well, I am wearing it. I had it repeated as a pattern, and I would have worn this shirt to the opening of our exhibition. As you know, I don't have a boutique, and I may never have a boutique or a store, but nothing prevents me or you from wearing your own bespoke items. That is the wonderful thing about digital printing nowadays. You can print what you need, and you can use your own work as a motif. Here I am with another piece of decor that didn't make it to the show. Excuse the plastic, but this is a plastic print. They call it baby film, I think. And here you can see some of the models. This is part of the last chapter of my book, and it would have adorned my store. But now it will not happen anymore. I may donate this to a museum in the old city. The old city is now a UNESCO heritage site, World Heritage Site, if you did not know that. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because this is another way of promoting your work. You can have it printed on film or on canvas. Obviously not so big. I made mine big so that people could read it on the walls. But this is another way in which you can show off your work if you like it. Remember, exhibitions have become image-generating occasions. People don't want to buy, but they want to use their phones and post on their platforms to say where they were. Provide selfie backgrounds. And do not become despondent when people don't buy from you. Remember, we are all image saturated. We are living in a time where people are sending videos, pictures, and we are so flooded with images. So when people come to your exhibition or your show, it is actually about them now. And this is a point I want you to think of. It dawned on me that an exhibition is no longer about the artist. It is about creating an occasion for the people who will be attending. It is about them. They want to tell where they've been, who they associate with. So our artworks in the background, as you see here, our artworks are literally being pushed to the background. Or they should be left in the background, because people want to show themselves off and they want to use the occasion. So just remember that. If you can, as an artist, look past yourself and start to focus on the people who will attend and provide an atmosphere for them in which they can make some news and have some images which they can upload to their social media, then you've done well. Because it's no longer about our works, because we have to keep the time of media overload in mind, because we are all overloaded, we are saturated. So make it an occasion for the people about them. Forget about your work. It is simply the background for the fun they are going to have. That is the conclusion that I have arrived at over the last 8 years, having been involved in exhibitions and trying to sell my art and talking to other artists. But obviously this is just my opinion. Okay. Now that I have brought my journey with Jeddah visually and symbolically per video recording to a close, I will pose a few questions that I have been struggling with, and maybe you could offer me your advice. Here are 5 questions. Number 1, how do we become meaningfully visible in this digital or virtual ocean in order to stay relevant as creatives? Number 2, do we really need a virtual presence to achieve our hobby dreams? 3, where do we position ourselves in this oversaturated media world? 4, how do we please people who have seen it all? Think of the people who come to your exhibition. They have seen it all. They see it on their smartphones all the time. Number 5, who is the best person or people or internet avenues to tell people about your work? And then in conclusion, I trust you could learn something from my journey with Jeddah. Thank you very much for watching, and may you find the courage and grace to keep on being creative, even though it may seem that the odds are against us. Be blessed. Thank you.